My name's Josh Snyder, and you're listening to Thoughtful Discussions, and I'm here with...
Brandon Lehman.
And tell me about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a local musician, business owner, event producer in Pittsburgh.
Awesome. How'd you get started doing that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been, I've been playing guitar as my main instrument. And, I first got my guitar when I was 8 years old. So that's the thing I've been doing the longest.
Cool.
And, when I got to Pittsburgh, that was around high school time, I, studied music then. And so, I studied guitar performance and I started in bands. And then through bands, I started to get into booking shows and then, putting on events and then kind of getting into corporate and wedding events and then certainly, then more into building infrastructure for bands in our city. So it's kind of sort of taken this path from performer to trying to build things for performers and for folks having events.
Love that.
Yeah.
So when you were 8 years old and you got that first guitar, was that something you had been asking for a while? Did you know that was something you wanted, or was that a surprise to you? And
No.
You're like, oh, what's this?
It was I'm pretty sure it was a surprise. I mean, I my direct family, my mom and dad were not musically inclined at all. But my uncle, who lived in Pittsburgh, I grew up in South Carolina.
Okay.
We would visit Pittsburgh on a yearly basis, and every time we would go see him play. So he played in River City Brass Band, he played in the Symphony, and every summer we would go see him play. And he played trombone, so like nowhere near guitar. Probably the furthest thing from a guitar you could probably think of. And he bought me my first guitar
Nice.
when I was 8 years old. And so
Cool.
I was not really expecting it and not really expecting to be part of the music thing. And it really didn't even hit me right then. It took years, because I was just like, what is this thing? And my mom's like, you got to go to lessons now and you got to practice. And I was like, I don't really know. I kind of just want to skateboard.
Yeah.
That's all I kind of really wanted to do. And then, once I moved to Pittsburgh, it was a very swift change to falling in love with the instrument. So,
and what age were you when you moved to Pittsburgh?
I was going into 8th grade, so
okay.
I'm not sure, it was at 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
To summer of 2002, I remember.
And you're like, I got to meet new friends.
Yeah.
And I got this guitar, I guess.
Yeah.
I've been taking lessons, and I haven't, but this is something I could show off, I guess. Maybe I can make friends this way.
I mean, I certainly guess.
I mean, I'm just trying to think like 12-year-old brain,
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't too excited to be in Pittsburgh, but I knew that, my uncle was teaching at Kappa, the Performing Arts High School, and that was where I wanted to go.
Cool.
So I did go there, and that was when things like kind of like blew open, and I got to be in his jazz band and be in some of his classes and play music half of the day, which was something I hadn't experienced yet in school. It was all academic before that.
Right.
And this allowed me to be academic and then eat lunch and then play my guitar for 3 hours. And that was very cool. And I was immediately surrounded by a lot of, similar weirdos and creatives and people like writing music and doing all that stuff.
I don't know what year, but I know Femi is a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
She went to Kappa.
Yeah, I think I knew that too. I was graduated in 2007, so I think maybe she was a little bit younger.
Gotcha.
But not by much, I don't think.
Great experience, great school. I mean, from everything I've heard, I'd be thrilled to have my son go there if he decided to kind of go that direction.
It was. I mean, I definitely credit it to many. As to like where I am now, I credit it a lot. It prepared me in a lot of ways. To just be playing music professionally and how to think about my instrument and how to like spend time with guitar, which is a kind of a funny thing. Like, I mean, that's sort of like thinking of it as a friend. It's kind of like a silly thing. It's an inanimate object, but like you do spend so much time with your instrument, and it becomes sort of this semi-intimate relationship. And so I think that was the start. That laid, Kappa laid the building blocks for what, sort of what was to come, I think, in the future.
and they kind of make you go through a variety of different types of art, right? So you're not just doing one thing and focused on it 100%. There, you might get 10-20% of the thing you want to do, but you have to do other things too, and that helps round you. I feel like.
Yeah, in sort of like under the umbrella of music, everybody had their focus, their major, which might be music, which might be literary arts, which might be visual art or dance. But that's just a widely cast umbrella, and underneath that is
which they can all work together.
Totally,
in very many ways.
And we would sometimes I would sneak up to the 5th floor or 6th floor, whatever it was, to hang out with my friends who were artists, and just kind of sneak into a class and see what they were doing. So I was like, what are you doing? You're drawing?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we were so disconnected from that.
Right.
But yeah, we would, and as a music major there, you're doing solfege and going to vocal classes. You're learning piano, recording arts, and then probably the biggest thing is that we had a recital every Friday that oftentimes we were playing, and if not, we were in the audience. Yeah. And
so was that public or for
sometimes they would be public. Sometimes they would be parents and family and stuff could come. Sometimes they would be fully public. People would buy tickets to come see these high school kids play music, and I was like, people are paying to see us. And that was pretty cool. It really got my performing chops up quickly, and got rid of the fear of performing, but then also taught us how to be an audience, which was something that I wish everybody had. And that's important. Yeah. We were told at a young age that's the absolute worst crime you can commit, is yelling Freebird at any show.
My brother was in a punk band, and he learned it so that anytime someone, and they only had 15-minute sets anyways, so that you would just ruin the rest of their set. They would play it. Anytime someone asked, they'd play it. Yeah. And it was a horrible punk version, hilarious, and you just mess up the whole thing.
It's funny that's the song, that's the one. And,
right.
But that's where that came from. But I guess if you want to be funny, you can prepare the whole song.
Right.
Hey, you want to pay for it? I tell people you give me $50 and I'll play Freebird right now.
Yeah. And
only 2 times that people call my bluff. A guy slapped a $50 bill on the stage. He's like, play it. I was like, all right, let's go.
You're gonna hear my version.
And then we did it, and it was I learned the song, and I actually like the Eagles, or Leonard Skinner. So I learned it, and I learned it well. Leonard Skinner, actually, funny enough, was my first concert I ever went to. So yeah, I was very familiar with the song. I'm like, yeah. I'm gonna play this, and then he was like, that was pretty good. I'm like, cool, man.
I mean, it probably didn't teach him anything, but if you could talk to someone that is a heckler now, through the podcast, or if you've ever been to a concert with someone that's a heckler and you comment and tag them, what would you speak to them? How would you talk? How would you educate?
I mean, I would start with saying this is for you. This isn't about you. What we're doing on stage is for you and for everyone.
Yeah.
But the minute that you inject yourself into it, it loses the magic of the performance.
Right.
Because then it immediately stops whatever we had either planned, or if it's improvised music, what we're improvising, and we have to focus on the audience.
Yeah.
In the moment that happens, it sort of breaks that barrier.
Yeah.
It derails it. The mood changes, sucks all the energy out of the room, and then and then after that, it's never quite the same. That's why you see a stand-up someone stand-up set and they're getting heckled, that if that's their thing that they do, then maybe that's a little bit different, and there's a focus on crowd work and stuff like that. But if it wasn't planned and it happens, it it gets you maybe they can get 90% back.
Right.
And it just
absolutely.
derails, so.
Yeah. No, I've seen it, and it's awful. We had a comedian in here a couple months ago, and we were talking about hecklers, and didn't chase one out, but he saw one out in the parking lot and was like, "Hey, like, what's going through your head?" And and he's like, "Oh, I thought it was helping you out, man." And he's like, "No, like that could be farthest from the truth. Like you're throwing me off so badly. And this isn't like that's not the game. If someone wants heckling, or what you think might heckling be, I mean, hecklers don't know they're heckling, but if someone wants to be interacting with the crowd, they'll do crowd work. You're not invited to, a scream and a holler and a clap is one thing, but there's people that want to go a little bit beyond that.
And it's just like selfish. They want them to be the center of it then.
So educational moment there, and appreciate that, and for people that might be on the from the stage side, from where you're sitting, there's a we can find annoying parts about any profession. And, graphic design. I had this printing project this week where they downloaded something off of Canva and they wanted us to print it. We printed it. We did a great job. We did it exactly to their specs. We did it on the paper they wanted, and they got their order and they didn't like the way the border came out. They didn't like the texture of the paper, and we have very we have links to all the paper types so that you can go and see it, and we welcome people that come in and get test prints, so we make sure that we're doing the right things. But if someone's not a designer, then they don't know all these things, and so we ended up dropping the border and doing a different texture paper, and then they loved them. So it's fine, but it can create this like chaos, and in any industry, whether you're making food or you're making you're in politics, whatever it is across the board, there's always going to be something that's like, this is really annoying that I have to deal with this thing. And I think for music, like that's probably one of the main ones, heckling. But we can all find some common, like I hate it when this one thing happens.
I mean, you can take so much care to try to communicate all possible variables or something if you're working with a client or someone who's hired you to do something that you're professional in.
There's a lot of information out there. We got a special guest co-host coming in right now.
What's
up? Let's slide it on over.
How's it going,
got the
bro?
bucket hat. What's up, dude? How you doing?
Good.
So we're going to just move these mics back a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Ooh.
All right.
So what have I missed?
We did a little introduction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to summarize that,
Josh was heckling me while I was trying to talk.
That's how it was going down.
we need to get a. I'm gonna cut real quick, and then we'll go back. So and then on this one, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. There we go. There.
Nice.
You want to check?
Yeah. Check.
I think we're in. I think we're good.
Hello.
All right.
All right.
We're back in business. Just like that.
That's right.
I love it.
All right. So we are back, man. I'm late. Hello, everybody. How you guys doing?
We're just gonna clip it in like you just
like I've been there the whole time. They just shifted the camera this way.
Exactly.
I've been there the whole time.
You're just hanging out.
Absolutely.
So Brandon is you could give a little summary of what we're talking about.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, I'm a local musician and producer and produce events, and I local business owner too. What we were just talking about was the some of the rules of being an audience member of a show, and some best practices for what to and what not to do.
Are we talking to the hecklers in the?
We were. And then you came in.
I got you. That's exactly.
And
I'm
so,
on
and
brand.
actually, what I was just about to say when you walked in the door was that like you can plan as much as you possibly can for any outcome. You can try to, cross your T's, dot your I's with any
Give
client.
people all the information.
Everything, and like there still will be something that happens that might throw you off, and that's your ability to roll with it.
Correct.
And what do you do
That's
with-
what defines you as a
do with that.
professional.
Yeah.
Is how quickly you're able to recoup.
I heard something interesting about hecklers too. They say hecklers are sometimes they're not there to like they don't think they're messing up the show.
Right.
They're thinking,
we were talking about that too. They think they're part of it. They think they're adding to it.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. I forgot who I heard say that, but it was like, oh, that sounds interesting. They actually think that they're adding to the show.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, just don't do that, guys. If you're listening, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Unless someone asks you to do it,
Right.
don't do it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Even if they asked you, just sit there and look them in the eye and like, nah, I'm not going to do it. Because you should.
The crowd work. The crowd work is the exception.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, and this heckler is also in, I mean, that's
In a concert performance.
Yeah, never really heard
Free
of
bird.
Yeah.
that. Okay. Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
No,
like
I
someone
don't.
yelling out a song, like, "Hey, play this song!" Like making requests.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I thought that was dead. Like request. No, it's not a karaoke show.
Here's a good example. I was actually in the audience. I went to go see Emily King a few weeks ago, or I guess a month ago, in Cleveland, and so we went to see Emily King, and her hit song is called "Distance," and she's gonna play the song. She
Yeah.
always does, every time, and she ends with it because that's the biggest song. It's usually what you do, and
You gotta bring people in.
oh my God, the whole time people there's two guys in particular yelling like play distance, like like 2 songs in,
Right.
and everyone's like, she's gonna play it, she's gonna do it, and she's she's such a pro, she kind of like lets it roll off, but like after like the 15th time, like you could tell she's kind of getting annoyed,
Absolutely.
and she's like patient, she's like being cool, and so that was even that was like very disruptive to a show, and they're asking for a song that that is her song,
Right.
and that she plays, and she was going to do it, but sometimes we've prepared a product for you, the audience. Let that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's very interesting. As far as performance anxiety, like I took a public speaking class in college, and I can perform. I play like hand drum and I've performed in front of thousands of people, but like speaking, like public speaking, can't do it. I can't do it in a room of probably 10 people.
Yeah.
I crumble, fall apart. Podcast, I could have 10,000 people listen to it, no problem.
Yeah.
So
What do you think it is? Like, what do you think is the difference?
I'd love
Like
to know.
the fact that they're here, that they're there.
I think the fact they're there, yeah, and that there are things that can throw you off, but also there's that live factor where you're kind of like in the midst of it. But I also like I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 35, so my experiences with public speaking may have been kind of wrapped around that.
Sure.
Where like I'm kind of reading too fast or too slow and not quite not unprepared, but not it's very hard to like get it all to be an experience
come
and
together.
produce that product.
Yeah, I feel
Where this kind of thing, this conversational, however you want to call it, promotional interview style, like this I can do when I was young, 18, 19. We had a music magazine. We had we were recording interviews with bands. That was like our main thing, and then we came out with a magazine where we had ads for our print shop, and that's how we used that as a tool to get readership and get eyes on the printing business, and so
Nice.
kind of do something similar with the podcast where we use this as a tool to shine a light on people that may or may not be customers, and then also be able to talk about the print shop. I mean, when you came in, you handed someone a business card, and it's cool to be like, hey, I made that. That's cool. This is where we're at.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, being a professional performer, I think everyone starts there, though. That's the thing, I mean, and I think everyone has their method. You being a professional performer, is there a method that you use while you're on stage to
like stay on track.
Yeah, to stay on track, to not make the moment feel too big.
Yeah, I mean, maybe now subconsciously, just because I mean I've at this point I've played thousands of shows and on tours, playing to strangers, playing to empty rooms, to playing to thousands of people. So it really varies, and internally it doesn't really feel any different.
You still get the butterflies though, right?
A little bit, yeah. Every single time, yeah. There's like a little.
Yeah.
You're kind of on edge a little bit. It's almost like you're standing on a fence and you're sort of like leaning over. It's like that sort of feeling. But just with reps and with the amount of time spent on a stage and people like looking back at you, you sort of develop. I don't know that I would be able to name the specific mechanisms at work that kind of keep my feet on the ground and keep me like upright. But I know that I am, like, without a doubt, when I step on stage, 100% locked in to what the job is. Yeah. And what that job is can be different from gig to gig.
Right.
Whether
can you like go a little deeper on that?
That's
totally interesting.
So like if I'm like a hired gun on stage, let's say I'm good example. I played in Atlanta a few weeks ago with Benji. So I'm Benji's a guitar player. The band comes out. We are 100% there to support the homie. Like he's the guy. He's like all eyes are on him. We are here to support him. And so what that means is that I'm not running around stage like a psycho, trying to get eyes on me, trying to overplay and make sure that people can hear what I'm doing. I need to make sure that I'm blending in with the band as perfectly as possible. And so that's my 100%. That is where my focus is.
Yeah, read the room.
Yep.
Understand what you want the room temperature to be, then try to turn up the knob to that exact.
I want to turn him up.
There you go.
I don't want to turn me up.
But there might be instances where he wants the whole band to be out jumping around.
And we'll sort of, and that's we'll sort of like MD the show to kind of bring up, okay, here's like Brandon's moment. He's got a big guitar solo in this song. I'm going to kind of elevate him and kind of come back down. And so it's like this nice, sort of topography of a show, and like sort of building that. And then sort of on a different side of things, when I'm performing, if I'm playing at a wedding in a band, which is what I do a lot, I'm leading the band. I'm singing a song that everybody knows, and so I gotta be like turned up. I gotta be, especially if I'm playing, something with heavy guitar and I'm playing and singing. I need to be performing at that level, but I also need to be keeping an eye on the time to make sure we're not going over time. Because I'm also emceeing this event.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
And I need to like make sure where's the wedding planner? Is she over there? She's trying to get my attention because we need to like take a break to do some formality. What time is it? How many more songs do we have?
Did my band eat?
Yeah, right. Did everyone eat? So like when I'm on a gig like that, it's a little bit more. It's more like a pie chart where I have like, okay, as much percentage as I can be performing good, but I also need to like leave some room for some of these little bits.
So my next question is like, do you have a talk before you guys perform, or is this something that everyone feels simultaneous? Like how do you guys communicate while you're on stage?
Yeah, I mean, that can also vary with. Sometimes it's literally we're talking.
Okay.
So like if there are folks who are
like Bruce, turn it down, Bruce. Come on, Bruce.
Yeah, you're a little bit louder. Like, the next chord's D. If someone's lost, it's just the whole idea of like keeping your head up while you're playing is huge. In a musical setting, and especially if you're playing with a bunch of new people. And if I'm the guy who everyone's looking at for cues, where we're going in the song, if we're going back to a bridge, if we're gonna like play out, people are looking at me. I got to keep my head up. I can't be down like this, because people are gonna be looking. Sometimes I'll name a chord, based on its value in the song, or I can say like I'll say where we're going. Sometimes if I'm on the mic to the crowd, I say like, let's sing that again, and like they know then that we're gonna do it again.
I got you.
So just like little tricks depending on I think depending on who you got on stage. And sometimes if you've been playing with guys a long time, you could almost like telepathically communicate, which
Yeah.
is some of that stuff is
You can read.
That's
it.
Wow. amazing.
You can just like
Yeah.
wake at someone and they know exactly what's gonna happen. So
You always hear about that with like jazz players, man. And
Mhm.
you know, you get a certain guys together. It's like they can they can rip it all night. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And almost like it was made for that moment where everything was just spontaneous,
Yeah.
man. It's just some magic in itself to me.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you had something? You had something, Josh?
No, well, I wanted to let you introduce yourself. We came in
yeah,
and you didn't really
For
give
those
us,
for those that are new listening, this is Thoughtful Discussion with Josh Snyder, and you know his normal co-host. His name is Corey, and that's who you're hearing. So it's not just a guy that was
randomly walked in
silent.
the door.
Yeah, just silent. and
I
came
invite
in
him. I
30
said,
minutes
come in,
He's like, "Hey,
interrupt.
what's going on in here?"
Let's get it.
Yeah, so we are here, and I'm happy to actually be. I'm happy to make this one. Usually I'm on time, but you know, circumstances happened today,
No.
and we made it happen.
all right.
Well, I wanted to talk about that too because you ended up with a gig and work
Yes.
work came in and it was an opportunity for you. So a little bit of a growth moment. You're starting this business, which
Absolutely.
is right up here.
Yeah, the 1028. If
yeah.
you guys don't know, now you know. Yeah, man. So yeah, today, right before a few hours before we were supposed to go on, I got a call from a new client telling me they were in a bind. They had a podcast that they had to shoot. The videographer had to cancel, but they wanted to go forward. So luckily, I've been
You're able to swoop in.
Yeah. Luckily, and how he found me was pretty cool. He found me because I'm working with a new guys, Lum and Lau, the Lum and Lau show. So new clients that I have, and they do a magnificent podcast, and I record them, put it on video, edit the video, and they put it up on YouTube. And so these guys have been watching the clips and really liking the content, liking the quality of it, and that's who they contacted, and he gave me my number, and bada bing, bada boom, it happened
That's
like
it.
that. So
So
it was pretty beautiful.
that's a moment right here. I'd like to. So if someone is out there and they're thinking about starting their business, doing it is the most important. People say showing up is 80%, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like going and doing the thing is how you will get started. And you've been at this for a minute. It's been about a year.
Yeah, it's been about
right?
a year. Absolutely.
And so you plug away, you do it. Whether you start part time or you're able to dive in full time. Either way, you make those moves and you start going. But you have to show up and you have to start and you have to if it's something you're passionate about and you enjoy doing, just
and you know
start.
what? There's
please.
going to be moments, man. There's
Yeah.
going to be moments while you're doing it, and you're going to feel like nothing is happening. But I'm telling you, that's an illusion. Just keep grinding away, and if you believe in what you're doing, the energy will catch up. The moment will happen, and it's not about just the moment happening. Because where they say luck is opportunity meets preparation, right?
Right.
Preparation meets opportunity. So what you're doing is you're preparing yourself for when the opportunity presents itself, that you'll be ready. If you're all ready, you ain't got to get ready. So just look at it as you're getting ready for that moment. And when that moment happens, believe me, you'll be ready. And then you knock it out the park, and you
then you get another one.
You get another one. You keep doing
Yep.
it, man. It's like a snowball rolling down the hill. It just gets bigger and bigger. And believe me, there's going to be moments where I quit twice last week. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you like this, man. Just stay strong. Keep your head down and keep going.
Yeah.
That's all I got for you. And that, you know what, I can't promise you anything, but I'll promise you this, actually. I'm going to promise you this. If you do that, sooner or later it's going to happen. And it's going to happen sooner than later. You just got to keep moving, man.
Yeah.
Just got to keep moving.
And if it doesn't
It's
work out,
weird.
it builds onto something that comes later.
Yeah.
There-
Sounds so
there-
cliche,
and there's-
too, right?
No, and if it doesn't work out, there's absolutely a reason for doing it, and part of that reason might just be not having to wonder if you did do it.
Yeah.
So because that's that regret of not trying something when you have an idea and there's something that it's like kind of tugging at you to like do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a very big annoyance.
So what they call fail up. Fail
Yeah,
up.
Oh,
fail
absolutely.
up. Fail up. I
Yeah,
believe in that
absolutely.
100%.
You know, I
love
heard
that.
something the other day too, where it was talking about feels like everything's falling apart, but it's not really falling apart; it's falling together.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at right
Yeah.
now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It felt like everything was crumbling. There was nothing going right. The world was just stepping on my goddamn neck. But in those moments, there's one thing that'll get you out of it. You just got to deploy it every time that you get that feeling, and there's gratitude. There's
Yeah.
something. There is something. Believe me, I know it's going to feel like there's nothing, but there's absolutely something to be grateful for every day that you're on this earth, man.
Right.
And I'm telling you, the worst thing that ever happened to you, I shit you not, is probably the best thing that ever happened to you. It's just all perspective. I just seen Steve Colbert sit down with Anderson Cooper on a TikTok. It was a TikTok or something like that, and he was talking about the worst thing. The thing that you wish didn't happen to you was the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
And I always say that. I always say, that, that fire is hot. Okay, don't touch it. But somebody can tell you that, but until you touch the fire and feel the heat,
Yeah.
you really don't know exactly what that is. So, but once you do it, you realize you don't want to do it. So the way you move will make sure that you do not feel that pain again.
Some people
You know what
need
I'm
to
saying?
learn from experience, and they
Yeah.
need to fail and then try again.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the pain for some
Yeah.
reason. It's just like- yeah, man. That was my moment today, and I'm grateful for it. And I think we knocked that. I know we knocked it out of the park again because I
Awesome.
was ready.
Yeah.
I was ready. Came in like a pro, knocked it out, and it was all about that.
Awesome.
That's what I did.
Nice.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Hey, man. Appreciate that. That's enough said.
I love it. And tell me more about your business now, like what you're doing and how it works.
Yeah, totally. So I run a facility called Little Giant that I opened sort of as a pilot program last year out of frustration for lack of well thought out rehearsal spaces for music. And I just got tired of like, all right, we got this, we're putting together this band for this event. Where are we gonna rehearse? Are we gonna be in Brandon's basement? Like we're gonna figure out how we're gonna get good sound in there, all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to try a pilot program for something that exists in other cities. That's very very common in LA, Nashville, New York. This idea of a fully backlined rehearsal studio. You walk into the studio and it has amps and drums and keyboard, a full PA system. Everything's already set up like a show, so you can walk in with just your axe, plug it in, and start within a few minutes.
Plug and play.
Yeah.
I love that.
And the whole idea, this thing I've been like trying to like hammer in my life about like efficiency and taking, like reducing the friction of like the creative process, because momentum is such an important part of how we create and how we continue to build. And so I'm like, okay, thinking about friction in this way, how could I take friction out of the rehearsal process? And that was like, immediately I was like, okay, I've been to these facilities in other cities. Why don't we have them here? And
Gotcha.
there were a few, tangential examples of this, but really not a place that was, purpose built for a rehearsal environment for musicians. And so I, started that pilot just out of a storage facility in McKees Rocks, and it kind of immediately was welcomed with open arms, which was awesome. I was able to have my rehearsals out of the space, which is great because I'm like, cool, I can use my own.
You were going to do
my
that
own
anyway.
place. Yeah, I was going to do it anyways. And a bunch of other folks were able to utilize it. And maybe one of the biggest examples of this were the bands that were put together for the Pittsburgh Plays Queen show last year that was at Thunderbird. All four bands had all of their rehearsals at Little Giant, so like that was the place.
Congratulations
And so
on that, man.
there were 4 bands. Every band had 4 rehearsals, so it was like 16 rehearsals happened for this one show, all in the same place. And it was very, very cool. And the magic part of it is that when you go to a show and you know if folks have truly prepared, they've had a place where they can really work through not just the songs but the transitions and building the show and working on banter and how they want to be set up on stage. All of that stuff is so important and goes into building a higher production value experience for the audience. Then seeing a show happen when you know that those folks are prepared and like how sick it is and like how well thought out that show goes, then I'm like, okay, this is something that this city can support, because there's so many things that the bigger music cities have that, like, okay, will this work in a city like Pittsburgh? And so it worked. And so at the beginning of this year, I opened a much larger facility in the Allentown neighborhood of Pittsburgh. I closed the McKees Rocks one. That was good. That it did what it needed to do.
Yeah.
I needed a more permanent solution, a bigger facility. So now I have, a big 2,500 square foot, big production facility for bands to rehearse in, for folks to come in and use as a writing room,
Right.
to do live recording, video recording. I have a little podcast set up like this.
Yeah.
There's a classroom that Bottle Rocket will teach their comedy classes. They do like improv and puppetry and stand up, and it's all kind of happening in this one space at Little Giant. And so now it's become, a pretty integral for me, and hopefully for at least a few other groups, integral part of their preparation process and how they share.
Sounds like a community as well, right? You have
we do shows there now.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're crossing you're crossbreeding the audiences almost. You know what I mean? Because you have comedy, but you have, the one thing everybody has in common is they're performing.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're going to find something that a comedian does that a singer may be able to learn from, or something a singer does that a comedian will be able to learn from somebody who's in the band, and there's a lot of valuable information and people that have common interests and common problems, so they're going to have, very interesting conversations over there, man. Yeah. So, man, how did it go from just the rehearsal bands, like bands rehearsing, to now comedians coming in and so forth? How did that even become part of? Was that planned? Was that something that you planned, or something?
Not really. So I knew I wanted a larger facility. That was all I really knew. And I knew that I wanted certain offerings. I wanted to like upgrade the entire experience so that if somebody wanted to record their rehearsal or record a performance, they could do that. I wanted to make relationships with videographers to go in and capture, live performances on video as well for these folks. So that was sort of like where I was living. Then, when I met Chris from Bottle Rocket, and Bottle Rocket's bread and butter is comedy. They know how to book comedy, and they do it well. And they have these classes that they were running out of the bar. And so Chris and I sort of talked about this, the warehouse right behind the bar was always this place that he would think about, but he didn't really have enough of a fully formed, idea for this warehouse until we sort of met. And we're like, oh, why don't we have our office there so we can both work, which is great, so that you're not working from the bar at your bar.
Right.
You want
and
to have
the bar
like
is right there too, so that's just
very convenient.
That's very, very convenient, my friend. I like the way you guys are thinking.
And then why doesn't Bottle Rocket teach their classes here while I also have run the facility from a rehearsal standpoint, and then maybe we sort of tag team live shows. And the live show thing was also not really something on my radar, but as soon as we walked in the place, I'm like, this place is huge. It can fit like 70 people, like 60, 70 people, and we could definitely do shows here. And Bottle Rocket was like, well, hey, we can also set up our liquor license to be roaming in this building, because it's right behind it, so we can actually sell alcohol at shows at Little Giant. I'm like, well, then we have to we have to do that. That's
Yeah,
very cool.
yes,
to have this
absolutely.
community space where people can play shows and go see shows and also be able to drink and like it be, you know, sold from a bar.
Sounds like a no-brainer, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you know, but
So go and do the thing.
Yeah.
Show up, be a
Mhm.
part of it, and then be open to, you know, see what else comes along.
Yeah.
Because things are going to come along, and then
Mm-hmm.
it'll blossom into something, and it's ever changing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even in my business, it's always, you know, let's do less of this and more of this, and what can be the new thing that we do, and
Yeah.
it's amazing. I love
We're always
seeing it.
coming up with like ideas, you know, what is, and Chris is very good at this, where he does not turn down a crazy idea.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's
He's-
important.
If you got some like
Yeah.
off the wall idea, he's like, all right, tell me, like you say it and be like, tell me more.
Right.
And instead of like, nah, let's not do that.
And you guys are a year old, right?
Yeah.
So so you're still really figuring out the identity as well too. So
Sure. Yep.
that's beautiful because there's certain things that you can't see, but then your vision starts to become a little clearer once you start seeing things happen, and you start connecting the dots. You know, what's the one thing that you think? Is there one thing that you guys do with everything that there's a common it has to have this in it for us to do it. You know, like is there one common theme between everything that you guys do?
I mean, I think that it has to serve the performer.
Okay.
In whatever it is. We always have, you know, I built the facility with the performer in mind.
Right.
And what sort of amenities do I need to provide that would make this the best that it possibly could be? Okay, and now we're doing
That's
shows.
heavy.
What do we
That's
need to
heavy.
provide for everyone? Not only the bands are performing, but the audience members who are showing up. What do we need to provide them to make them feel like they got a good experience? So it's all about, and that's probably not so creative of an answer, but
No, that's beautiful. That's a
That's
mission
more than a
statement,
lot-
bro.
a
That's
lot
a
of
mission
places do.
statement right there,
Yeah,
bro. And you know what? I think more importantly, not knowing exactly what you do is more. I think the best thing is knowing what don't you guys do. Is there something that you would just say absolutely not to? It's hard to. Yeah. Okay.
not really. I
Okay.
think that
There's no no's in this place.
because I want to.
I ain't
Yeah,
mad at that.
Because I mean, I'd rather not. I'd rather someone not shoot a porn there.
I got you. That's real. That's
so
real.
if they
Yeah.
can avoid that, that
Yeah.
would be great.
You got to watch out for that, especially like
Yeah.
with the
There's a
pod-
time and place.
Yeah, because they're like people are renting studios. Like people are renting studios to shoot
Yeah.
like
Don't get any ideas.
only fan content. You know, like
Yeah.
there's a website in Pittsburgh where if you're looking for a podcast studio, and then it has a list of things that you can't do, and everyone has to put
Yeah.
no nudity in this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
So
That's the
far-
thing kind of taking over this.
Yeah, it's like Airbnb
yeah.
for OnlyFans.
Yeah. Well, so far we've not had to like put that, our foot down that way.
Yeah, it's not.
But we have, I wanted to keep it open on purpose. I wanted to have the purpose-built, production studio, avenue of it there. But I also wanted it to be an open studio for somebody to rent if they wanted, if they were a photographer, they needed some space, videographer, corporate meetup, anything of that sort. And so, sort of like what, Peer Space does for, spaces for people to just literally go and meet and talk about whatever they need to talk about. I wanted to keep it open that way too. And, here and there, that's definitely not our bread and butter, but like here and there, people will rent it out for family reunion or like
I'm not
graduation
mad.
party and stuff.
I'm not mad at what this is going into, man, because I feel like when you're early in the game, right, it's like we do have an idea of where we are, who we are, but we're still trying to figure out so much more, right? Who we can be is another thing, right?
Absolutely.
And then once you get there, it's always going to be shaping, but it really sounds like you guys are starting to get a good footing. I remember the first time I met you, we were talking about this, and now I've been seeing the content all over. I'm seeing Sid and the talks that they're doing there. The place looks phenomenal.
Thank
You know, especially for just a year in. I mean, it looks polished. If you guys are listening, definitely check it out. And if you are a performer, this will be a good place to really go before you maybe even hop on stage. And then,
Yes.
you work out your material there. The next, just invite them there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So you're in a comfortable space because you worked it out there.
Do you have
That's
anyone doing
really amazing.
lessons, like musical
Not
like instructors that are
Not
bringing
so
people
much.
in?
Yeah, not so much. There, initially, I had a couple friends who teach professionally who were sort of interested in using, because we have some breakout rooms
Mhm.
for that purpose. And so that hasn't been. I'd say it's been on the table, but not right in front of me.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a logical extension of that space.
Yeah.
And I would love for my friends who teach to not have to drive all over the city to go to their students' houses. If they can have an office for the day or a few times a week, where they can have all their students come in, and there's a room already set up with either a drum set or a keyboard or whatever, and all that stuff's already there anyways.
Absolutely.
So, that's definitely a pivot point that is in my notepad of things like, okay,
I love that.
what do we need to extend to? So,
Right.
yeah.
And when you when someone books, they book online.
Yep.
And do they get to kind of choose what that is there I want these amps and heads and
The backline's
is
there. I provide, 2 guitar amps, a bass amp, keyboard, and drums in a full PA system with, 6 mics already set up, 5 monitors set up. And so it's set up at the, the max that I could at least, financially put into that space, which is, I have a 10-piece band with a horn section, and we rehearse there. So I don't know many bands that are bigger than that would utilize that kind of space, but it's all there always. So if you want to use that, you can. I have touring bands who come in who already have their stuff, and they're like, we don't need to use that stuff. So then I'll be there. I'll just clear it out so that they have a blank space they can plug in their own production.
Gotcha. Absolutely, man.
or they're like, I want leave these things, but we don't want this one part.
Yeah, totally. And for shows, we'll do that too, which is helpful for to provide some backline for shows, because you have a show and there's 4 or 5 bands, and maybe they each drummer has their own drum set. Maybe they don't need to all bring. Maybe
Their whole
they don't need to bring 5 drum sets to the show.
But a snare, I mean, they all have their own snare.
Bring your the typical stuff that a drummer might bring. But my hope is that they're again removing friction from the from the performance process or the creation process or whatever it is they're utilizing that space for. Hopefully that there are things there that you're like, oh, this is already here. I don't have to. Right. So I can just start writing immediately. I can just start performing.
You said removing some of the static from the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like, man. And for those listening, man, definitely take notes on this, right? Find something you love, find something that you don't like particularly about that, or maybe some static that's in there, and try to erase it. And then figure out a way to you can do that for other people, and voila, you got a business, my guy or my gal.
Yeah.
That's speaking of business though. Could we talk about some of the growing pains? Because we know things always sound very, very smooth as we talk about it, because we like to talk about the social currency of it, right?
Totally.
And those growing pains may have started, long before the actual business
before it was even
implementation.
A thing. Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's always. I mean, this idea has been. I've been following an organization out in Los Angeles for a long time, who started in a warehouse with one room, and they did the same thing, and they got successful. They tore the wall down. They had 2 rooms. They tore a few more walls down. They had the whole warehouse at one point. Now they do tour management. They do have a rehearsal facility that's state of the art. They do rentals and musical direction services, all kinds of stuff. And so, I was seeing them build this the whole time. I'm like, yeah. I want to do that, or I want someone to do it. At some point, it wasn't me. I was just like, I wish we had that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I got sort of tired of saying I wish we had this. When I would go to other cities, I'd go play or record in Nashville and tour, at the facility that Kenny Chesney's band was in for the month, and I'm just like, man, why don't we have this?
Yeah.
And so, but I would say that the growing pains once I decided to do it was, there's a giant financial aspect of this that like
Absolutely.
you have to finance all this gear, this facility, and that's why I wanted to pilot it first. I think that the pilot program, the test flight for an idea like that is a really important step, so that you're not draining all of your money immediately.
Yes.
And if you can come up with, maybe here's my whole idea.
You don't need to be at the high limit table.
I don't need to
start with.
I don't need to build this entire 3-story house.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just focus on this one floor, maybe just this one section, and
Love
do
it.
that really well. And it's a fraction of the cost of my big idea that's in my head. And
I
this
believe
is
in that 100%. When I first started, I had a free website.
Yeah.
I had as much free stuff as I could do.
Yeah.
That I'm reinvesting every dollar until I get enough that that this no longer serves me.
Yeah.
And just like
it's a big,
real
it's
bones.
a pretty it's pretty core common thing in like product development or app development, like the MVP, the minimum viable product.
Mm-hmm.
Come up with the core thing that you want to do
Absolutely.
it, build it as quickly and as cheaply as you can, but still serving your customer.
Yes.
And then take it from there. And so that's why I utilized a storage room.
I love how you said the MVP, because that's exactly how we started this.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, when we were building out the podcast studio where I was at, that was the motive. That was the catalyst of everything was the MVP, right? So it was all about. I asked the sound engineer, somebody who does this. I was like, what is the one thing? What is the most common problem when people build out a podcast studio? It says they always get equipment they don't need. They over-invest.
Totally.
And he said you want to start simple and then grow from that, right? Start small, learn everything about that, so when you do grow, you know what you're growing, you know what you're getting when you step up, but also you understand. You have a basic understanding of what it does, so you'll know how to utilize whatever that thing is on the next level. And there's a story. Have you ever heard the story? You guys shoot bullets before you shoot cannonballs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel like when you're talking about that. Just starting. Start with something that is, you only could. When I say you only can grow from the thing. I mean, you only could grow from the things you survive. You only can make it through. Like you only can grow if you survive. And if you can't survive, then there's no possible way to grow. So, just make sure if you're going out there, you're shooting a shot. Make it calculated. You got to be all in, but you don't have to have it all in at one time.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like
and just like we were talking about with performing, like you can't think of everything. You can't think of every possible situation you might find yourself in if you're starting if you're starting a band, if you're starting a venue, a facility, whatever. You're gonna find out as you go some of these things, and it's just how you're able to adapt to them and how you're able to, and those will, you will grow from them for sure, as long as you meet them with intention and you meet them with, an organized process. Like, okay, we can't do that again. So how do we stop that from happening?
Yeah, that was a big issue for me, man.
Yeah.
I would think about the problems before I got started, and think about them so much that I'll have like the analysis paralysis thing, and then you realize as you're doing it that it wasn't a big problem, and when you're doing it, you're going to find a way to navigate whatever problem comes up, so you'll be a little more efficient because you actually have actual evidence and things to work with, and
absolutely starting little pieces, get the experience, figure out. When I had my first business in California, and we were moving from the garage into an actual space. We were doing screen printing. We'd been doing screen printing for 3 years in the garage at my home, and it was time to move out and get a real space and a storefront. And I made sure there was room for a line And I was like, yeah, well, there's going to be people. There's going to be like 3 or 4 people in line, and I'm going to be ringing people up basically for these custom orders that we get, maybe once or twice a day.
Yeah.
And in my head, I needed to create this space where I thought there were going to be people
so
at the
much
door.
more room. Yeah.
and in reality, like once, a few weeks settled in, and I'm like, wow, there's really, maybe I just need a couple chairs. I don't need. There's not going to be. We're not retail. We're not set up this way. It's more just like a little meeting type thing.
Yeah.
And so it was very, very interesting to, put you could try to think of everything, but when you put it into practice, that's when you'll really start to see the dominoes fall, and you'll be able to then you lean in more and build on that.
Yeah, totally.
Build on that experience.
I think my when we're talking about growing pains, I think the thing that I knew I had locked down was, what do musicians need? I know they need quality gear, and I know that they need a clean, safe space to use it. Some of the things that I didn't really think about, because I come a little bit from a tech background, and so I'm like, oh, these folks will be totally cool booking their time on the website and then using their access code to get in the room. And because that's how it works.
Sorry.
But yeah, I was that makes sense to me. Right. And then there was a little bit of the first few rehearsals were like, hey, like what am I doing with this? He texted me like a number. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And so there was like a little bit of that growing pain where I was like, oh, okay, let me. So now like signage and messaging is very important.
Absolutely.
And signage is not something I ever think about. Like what I'm putting in
I
the
do
room.
my signage all the time.
Like here, this. Yeah, right. You're the signage guy. Actually, I have some things I need from you, so I'll email you. But like, where's the bathroom? That's such a silly thing that I didn't have a sign for, and like a bunch of people would text me like, hey, is there a bathroom here? I'm like, in my head I was like, yeah,
of course.
Just look for it.
Right.
But then I was like, I need to put it.
That's not acceptable.
Every single public place I've ever been to has a sign for the bathroom. Yeah. And I'm
There's
like,
a reason
okay,
for that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then so it just, that part of the process was stuff that I was so hyper fixated on the gear and the musical experience and all that stuff, that some of the most simple stuff, just getting to the place and getting into the room, were things that I, that kind of went by me. So those are some kind of, as a friend of mine says, like assembling the car while you're driving down the road kind of thing. So that's, which I have a hard time doing sometimes. I need the whole car to be built before I start driving, and a close colleague of mine is like, let's get the engine and a seat in there, and like we'll figure it out as we go.
Is this your first business adventure? Like is this your first time out there?
Yeah, aside from like bands and stuff, which can be seen as businesses, but I think but yeah, it's the first, certainly my first place based business. So it's like an actual piece
brick
of
and mortar
property. Yeah.
So do you have like a business mentor, or do you have somebody that you can go to for guidance, or just to run ideas off of?
Yeah, and that grows. The more I work, I have some of like the best and smartest friends I think anyone really can ask for, and that's always growing.
Right.
The more I go down this road, where I can, hey, like, can we chat for like 5 minutes? I want to like bounce this idea off you.
Right.
Because naturally I can tend to close in and just, type out a business plan or make a website or do something and just do it myself, because sometimes I'm like, I know what's best, but other times I'm just like, I don't want to bother them. I just want to do this and get it done.
I have a core group of like 5 people I'm always texting. Corey's one of them.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Like, hey, I got this idea. I want to run it by you. I just need to say it out loud.
Is big. Yeah, it's a big deal. And some of the best ideas that have come to me didn't even come from me. They came to me from someone else, and then we're able to hash that idea out and implement it and be like, Yeah, that worked.
You know, and the reason I asked that because I just started at my editing journey, right? So I'm like editing videos and reading a lot of books on that. And if I sit with something, like if I sit with a project so long, sometimes I think it's something that it's not. So it's always great to, like when I had Josh come in and check out this video. It's like, man, I feel like I'm going in the right direction, but I was so invested in it that I missed, you know.
You gotta
like
get outside the box sometimes.
Yeah,
You
right.
gotta get outside of, you end up with like this fishbowl type thing.
Absolutely.
Right? And you need to be able to be on the outside looking in.
Right, and it was like so important to have, for me not to be like, to get those other eyes on it, a different perspective on that idea or whatever this thing is that I'm doing, to make sure I stay in line and sometimes get up and walk away, man. Yeah, it's a big thing.
Definitely.
But yeah, it was just that's what that reminded me of. It was just like, you know.
Well, it's like producing music. I mean, this is a funny parallel, is that, you know, when you're recording music, you're writing music, oftentimes you'll have an outside producer to kind of help guide and to be a separate from the core entity of the band, to sort of help steer the ship. And you know, for you know, major bands and stuff, that's just like, that is, you always have at least one producer doing that who's not in the band. And it's very helpful from a, you know, business perspective as well, to have an outside producer to hear what you're working on and be like, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, I already did that and that doesn't work. Or like, you know, let's try that because, you know, I've seen that be successful in other ways. So like, have just like a band having a producer. I think if you have a business idea, that you have your colleagues or that circle around you to help produce your ideas.
Yeah.
So I look at it almost like chess. You know, you're playing and you're playing the guy across from you, but this guy that's watching right here sees everything and can literally see all of the moves, like, because they have a fresh point of view. It's so wild how that works, man, but it's so beautiful to have that. There's a lot of people in the movie industry that do the same thing. They want to make sure they have somebody who's not so invested in the project that comes in, and because they have, you know, they don't have so much, you know, so many chips on the table, you know, so their perspective is a lot less swayed, you know, and just more, you know, as if somebody is viewing it, the movie. So yeah, that's pretty interesting, man. Pretty interesting, my guy. So what is it that you see? What is it that you see next coming? Like, what's something that you plan on doing in the next year? You know?
Yeah, I certainly think expanding Little Giant in some ways, and you know, maybe that doesn't mean physical space, maybe that just means offering, but I am getting to a point where I'm starting to look at other spaces, other physical spaces, just because demand is starting to kind of pick up, and with some of the ideas that I have for the facility, it requires me to have, you know, more space, and in order for me to serve more people, you know, I don't know when this episode will come out, but there was recently an electrical fire a few weeks ago at a storage facility that houses storage and rehearsal rooms for bands. And so that particular business model is that this warehouse just has a bunch of rooms with outlets in them and lights, and bands can pay monthly to store their stuff in there and have band practice. And so
which you've done, which is how we met.
Yes, exactly. Which I've done. You know, that's kind of the standard model, at least in Pittsburgh, is that like you have a room, maybe you share it with a couple of your friends' bands, and you do that. Now,
crazy. That
warehouse, there's a warehouse in Allentown that had that 40-ish bands lost their practice spaces. They didn't lose their equipment, which is good.
Okay, thank
they
goodness,
They got to go and get their stuff
right.
out. But the warehouse shut down. They now announced that they will be opening at some point, but won't be doing rehearsal facility.
Okay.
And so now we don't have many of those buildings that do that as it is. That was probably like 25% of all of the rehearsal rooms that we have.
Was
in the
that
city.
ran by somebody that was in the industry?
No.
Though? See, that's the difference, right? That's the
100%.
difference.
Yes.
That's the difference.
And they've been doing it for a long time, and that's been the model for some of these storage facilities, but they don't understand exactly what we need. And these rooms are gross.
Like, we're going to charge you extra couple $100 if you want an air conditioner.
Yeah, it's just
come on,
like the
you
rooms,
know we need an air conditioner.
The rooms are gross. The buildings are like not very secure, and so now like that happened, and a bunch of my friends' bands lost their rehearsal place, and so immediately I was like, okay, well now I need to subsidize Little Giant to hopefully get some bands in here who need space, and the model's different because the thing that worked for them at that building is that they could store their stuff in there.
Right.
And they collected a lot of stuff. Musicians have a lot of stuff.
Amps
and all that stuff. It's that helped them. In the model for Little Giant, as it is now, where we have all this stuff, where we already have the stuff,
we provide the stuff.
It doesn't really help them all that much. So now I'm looking at
I wouldn't think that. I'm just initially, initially coming up with the idea. That's something I wouldn't think of. I was like, hold up, I can provide this for you, so now you don't have to worry about it. But like everybody has their own acts,
But you might have a musician might be, you could be renting a room, and you're paying for a space that are your rehearsal space, that it's all the stuff is there. That's your space that you go to. That's your office.
That's your storage.
Know what I mean? Yeah.
You might not have space at home
personalizing
for your drum set and stuff like that.
I'm taking like the smallest scenario versus what you have, and so trying to bring that in, like there's no way.
Yeah, me personally, it'd be tough for me to share an art studio with somebody because I have to make it feel like it's mine, and that personal feeling is probably the thing that they were able to offer, even though it wasn't ran by somebody who's cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So I get it. So that seems like the next move, huh?
Yeah, I wanna expand Little Giant in some meaningful ways that can serve more people, and I also I want to look at other areas of our industry where there's friction, and try to smooth that out a little bit more. And whatever that means, there I've got like just like a notepad of ideas that like wake up 2 in the morning and like type something out. Like, okay, I'll deal with that later.
You got a dream journal?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
I tried that once and scared the hell out of my wife. So she was like, "You're not gonna have this next day."
Yeah, I really don't remember dreams all that often. But I used to come up with song ideas in dreams a lot. And so I would have a melody. As soon as I woke up, this melody's in my head. I'm like, I gotta sing that right now. I'm like singing it. So I have I don't write music much anymore just because I've sort of pivoted away from creating music and trying to help others create music.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
With the last previous job I had, it was providing opportunities for other artists. Me being an artist myself, that takes a lot of energy to make sure other artists have what they need. But I know myself, I always say it's like the Betty White Snickers commercial, right? When I don't do art, I'm hangry. You know what I mean? I'm Betty White in that.
I've seen it.
Yeah. It's a horrible thing when I don't do art, and so I had to actually step down from that position to feed my creativity. You know what I mean? Because it is one of the things that makes me whole. I just couldn't make the transition. I'm not saying that that's impossible. There's some people that can make the transition and love that just as much. But me, I just it just wasn't at the time something that I could stomach anymore. So I know that's pretty frustrating not being able to create the way you were creating before. Even though you're creating other things, you're still creating.
Yeah.
But how do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I split about half my time between providing and performing. And so when I'm building at Little Giant and I'm putting my time into that, and then in the evening I'm going out and playing a show somewhere, it definitely requires a different mindset. And sometimes those sort of overlap with each other and can kind of get a little goofy. And I'm finding my lately I've just been finding my day to day to be a little disjointed because I'm running Little Giant. I have a couple other bands that I'm sort of at the helm of and trying to book those. I have a sort of like a booking agency for all those bands and talking with like wedding and corporate clients to like pair our bands up with their events, and all of these are happening like during the day.
Right.
And so I'm having this I'm having this sort of like disjointed like any day is like pulling me in like a million different directions.
Same.
And so now I'm sort of trying to build for myself. I'm trying to build a solution that allows me to be more focused. Each day has a thing.
Okay.
I have my Little Giant day where like all my social media, all that stuff kind of goes into that. And that's one of those things where like you kind of can't only do that on one day.
Right.
It has to be across the spectrum of the week. But as much as I can plan those things, and that's one of those things where if I had an original band and I had to write music and record and make records while I was doing all this, I would lose my mind. And so that is one thing that I have purposefully taken off the table and set aside. I didn't throw it away.
And there's no dust on it. You're still dusting off. You know what I mean? I got you.
So I want to do that at some point.
You have a lot of inspiration. You have a lot of things to talk about. A lot of emotion. See, and also you're always around other musicians and artists. Yeah. So it's not like you're not there right now.
Yeah, it's not all closed off. It's not sealed.
Yeah,
Similar perspective on my end, where printmaking has become my art. I do, and I've always enjoyed it, and I've been doing it for 20 years. But I have found I've also always been artistic in other ways, whether it's illustration, painting, photography, making music. And never really got to make music professionally, but the other things would all play out in a professional way, but I never gave them enough time, as much time as I gave to the printing. But I am very comfortable with the printing being my art. That how, even though they're not all my designs, when I'm making something that, knowing how it's going to lay on the paper, deciding what paper is the best, deciding what machines we're going to use, testing out all sorts of different things, and then pushing those limits and figuring out what works and what doesn't and why. Like, that is the art for me. And it's not necessarily like the actual image that goes on, but it's how the image goes on.
Yeah, totally.
The process of that. And that is building for, now when I do my art, I can make it the best that it can be. And so whatever that is, whatever medium that is, and as you develop this and you keep growing through this, when it is time for you to go and do that thing again, you'll be able to. I think I have confidence that you'll realize that you have been playing into it this whole time.
Don't shock yourself.
I
feel like I haven't really touched the canvas too much as I usually do. But it seems like when I go back to it, I no longer feel like I've been away from it too long, because I've been just shifting my creativity to other things. A creator's going to find a way to create. Even if we don't even know we're creating, we're creating. Yeah. It's like we can't even not do it. Right. It's so wild how that works. And then you hop on an axe and it just feels like, oh, wow, where did that come from? Oh, I have been sharpening the sword the whole time. I've been sharpening the sword. That's why it's like that. Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I love that. But so man. One thing I know we're recording there because we got to go and do a show there now. Right. It's
maybe we could do a live podcast.
Absolutely would be the spot. Yeah. It would absolutely be the spot to really turn this thing up to the next level. Right. I mean, everything he said is everything that that's what we do. So this sounds like two peas in a pot. Let's mix that thing up and put it on and turn the pilot on. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, let's
I got
do
a few
that.
ideas.
I know you do.
I love
I
it.
know a
Yeah.
creative can't stop creating because I got
Make it
like
happen.
4 that just hit me. We about to blow this thing down.
And there can be a I'm glad that we're all sitting at this table. We got Corey that has this studio. You have your podcast studio. Even though that's not primarily what you're doing, it's not the only thing you're doing either. We can coordinate, and there might be there could be room where he comes in with clients and uses that as a space because it works for them.
Yeah, totally.
That
It could be
sounds like amazing
where you guys
idea.
have something and you need it edited down, and maybe he can help, or like whatever it is.
definitely.
We're not always just butting heads.
Yep.
And that's what this community is about,
that
and,
is-
and I think that I'm glad we're here. I'm
Yeah,
glad to be at
absolutely.
the table.
Yeah.
We
And
gotta
I mean,
make
I
some
think,
things work. We can make some things work.
I agree. I mean, I think that's, too, it Pittsburgh is so small and we're all like so close together that it really like behooves us to operate that way. And
Absolutely.
you can't really, not everybody can kind of like be on their islands. And, that was something I was just thinking about today, where I was just thinking about, we don't have to really go down the rabbit hole on this, but I was just thinking the ecosystem of the events industry just in general, where you have, maybe all of the different vendors and the venue and the corporate clients and the sponsors and the performer, whether it's a DJ or a band, and how everyone is kind of generally only really concerned with their own thing, and how beneficial it might be to, like being on stage, like kind of keep your head up and accept the other folks around you and like what they're doing and how we can like work together to do that. So
And the power of collaboration
Yep.
is what's needed to, like, sometimes we wonder why we hit the ceiling is because, like, you only could take it so far. I always say if you can do something by yourself, you're not dreaming big enough.
Yes.
You're not dreaming big enough. If you can do it all by yourself and without anybody else, you're absolutely not touching. You're not. You may have hit the ceiling, but the stars still exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can be in a whole new atmosphere, whole new, like, you could be on Jupiter.
Yeah.
And you stuck in there with that stuck in the ceiling, with the gnats and those lights right up there. You know what I mean? Like, nah.
Yeah.
Collab.
Yeah.
Still
And-
sharp and steel, my friend.
Sorry, you have something to say. Go ahead.
I'm about to drink
Oh,
Andrews.
no.
Okay. So to circle back to public speaking for me, I did do an event with him and a good friend of mine, Wade Anthony, and we had this kind of panel discussion where we were all three talking, and then we had people come up with questions, and that worked out really well. I didn't find myself like fumbling over. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't like, it was more this.
Yeah.
And so doing a live episode, I'm totally down for. I think that we can do that. There
I
might be a
kn-
couple
I know you
instances
can
where
do it.
thanks.
I know you can
I
do
appreciate
it.
it.
I was so
Yeah.
shocked you were telling me you had this same conversation right here, and believe
I was like,
me,
hey, there was like 20
I was like-
minutes
I was
before,
like- I was like,
before
my
I'm
God.
like, just so you know, I'm gonna mess this up, and I'm gonna need you to kind of swoop in.
and
and help me out.
literally set the place on fire.
You've been preparing for this.
Yeah,
man.
setting it on
Yeah.
fire. It's so much different. This structure. It's like you're not really. We took a few questions and you still handled that like a pro. It was. I think.
We had a blast.
Yeah, I think
It
you're
was fun.
sharpening your sword and you don't even realize it. I think
Right.
you'll be all right up there.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, that was
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
and it's possible that being around the right people and changing what it is could be the difference in the formula. If I was reading a script, I probably wouldn't do that great of a job.
Yeah.
But maybe I would now that I am experiencing my life differently after having proper medication and being diagnosed and understanding myself more and understanding why I think the way I think, which has always been, I feel like I've used it to an advantage, but I've always kind of been a tornado in the way that I work. So
Yeah.
understanding that and trying to tighten that up a little bit.
Yeah, I
That's
feel
what's
that. Well, I think that, I don't know, like anything, like reps always help. And
Absolutely.
So, you just kind of get your reps in and
Yeah.
continue to do it. And when we did the live talks, with Sid and Jeff Betton and Jordan from Tech 25, like, it was, I've never done anything like that. Like,
Yeah.
I've been on stage, I've talked to crowds, I've, done banter, I've done that kind of stuff. but I've never really like been like a host. And it was I did okay. Like, you know, I did, you know, I think I did okay, but you know, I was like watching back, I'm like, oh man, come on, dude, like, stop saying and you know, it's just
the ticks,
you know,
the little ticks,
all that stuff.
the liking,
you're just trying to fill up space, so you don't want any empty space. So, you know, any of that kind of stuff. I think the biggest thing with any of conversations like we're having, you know, conversations, you know, like networking meetups and live podcasts about this kind of stuff, entrepreneurial spirit and in business. My biggest thing is that, like, takeaway is that the takeaway should be that there is a takeaway. You leave there with something cohesive. You leave there with an idea that you want to start to plan on, because so often there are these conversations that really pump you up with not much substance, and you just sort of get pumped up with all of this, you know, sort of like motivational energy, and then you don't really have a direction or like a cohesive way to sort of channel that. And so I love these conversations where I can leave with either inspiration that will cause me to go home and write something down or start some new idea, or cultivate some existing idea finally, maybe that I've been sitting on for years, or something new came to me in a conversation like this that I can start to cultivate, or maybe a person that I met at that event and I'm like, we need to talk now, because you just know that you have that connection with them. That's the stuff that like that gets me juiced when I see people making those connections, and when those ideas truly start to cultivate and we do something about it. We can sit here and talk about all this stuff, and if we're not doing anything and we're not pushing our peers to do things, that it, you know, just kind of like goes out into outer space. And so
I'm all for that. I love that. I think that's a great space right there.
Yeah.
That we again, I always say we always need you to be a second offender, but we might have to rerun through a lot of the roster again. And just have everybody come back, because I mean, you definitely earned a spot. You can come anytime you would like. This has been
My wheels
phenomenal.
are spinning.
Yeah, because I'm
very
lit
particular
right now.
way.
I gotta go to bed. I don't know if that's gonna happen. I got a little bit more editing to do tonight. I think I got the energy for it now. I'm pumped. All right, guys. I think we're ready to.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you were able to make it.
I'm so happy I got a chance to make it too, man.
Thank you for coming,
I appreciate just being here and having these type of conversations. Once again, thoughtful discussion with Josh Snyder. This is Choreo Chai. If you guys like what you're hearing and you want to, shoot a podcast yourself, you want to, put some content together or get you and your friends together and record something like this. That's why 1028 Podcast Studio exists. We handle the editing, we handle the audio, engineer. All you do is sit down and pod. That's it. We'll take care of the rest for you. And you can find us on Facebook, 1028 Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, 1028 Podcast. Twitter, you can find us on there as well. Twitter is a little toxic. I stay off of it. I'm not on it as much, but I'm trying to adjust that, as well as TikTok.
You'll answer your messages?
I don't know about all that. I'm trying my best, guys. I'm trying my best. But definitely shoot me a message, man, and we'll make it happen regardless. And
very affordable.
Very, very affordable. And as well as I would love to hear you guys tell your story. Everybody has one. It's time for you to put yours out in the world, and that's what we're here to do. Help you do that. So let's do it. All right, man.
And then so we'll run through our intros. You want to go next? Or outro, sorry. But basically your social media, any where people can find you, what that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. I live mostly on Instagram. That's kind of just, it makes the most sense to me.
Same.
Never been on Twitter. So my Instagram is It's Brandon Lehman. The Little Giant Instagram is Go Little Giant. I have a couple other entities on there. It's all linked in my bio for my actual main Instagram. So you can just go to my Instagram and follow the other entities that I've got. I'm also on Facebook and that kind of stuff. www.littlegiant.io is the website for Little Giant, where you can go book your time. You can see what we have in the room. You can look at upcoming events that we have, all that stuff.
Amazing. And How do you spell your name, just to make sure that people...
Yeah, Brandon, Brandon, and Lehman, Lehman.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah.
And you've been listening to Thoughtful Discussions with Josh Snyder, and I appreciate you listening. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. So thank you, and feel free to tag a friend, share this. If you got something out of this episode, it can go farther if you help us spread the word. So we appreciate it very much, whatever platform you're listening to. If you like, subscribe, whatever, it is very appreciated. We are very thankful that we get to do what we do with our lives, and this podcast is a part of that, and we wouldn't be able to do that without people that are enjoying it. So thanks a million times. Thank you. And if you want to follow me, my Instagram is the best way to find me, which is Josh Snyder 86, and that's Snyder with an I. From there you'll be able to find my printing business, PGH Print Ship, and the podcast. And then I'm also a volunteer board member for PGH Museums, which is a nonprofit organization who is kind of, describe it as a magazine, like an online magazine where the subject is museums. And it's a really cool directory, and there's podcasts and articles that are constantly published about the different museums and events and things that are going on in town. So it's definitely worth checking out. And the Instagram is where I post any art shows and kind of personal stuff that's going on in my life. So that's probably the best spot to go get things from everywhere else. I'm also on TikTok, but I don't post as much there.
Don't
but
believe
I
him
do
on
love
that one.
it.
He
I
posts
do
on the
love it.
TikTok. Go follow his TikTok, guys. Follow his TikTok. You will not be
Rising
disappointed.
star.
You better believe it. Don't let it be modest.
You on TikTok yet?
Yeah,
Getting
yeah.
You didn't want to
I'm a
admit it,
consumer.
though, Brandon. I see
I'm a
you.
consumer. I'm a
Yeah.
consumer. Yeah.
Yeah. It's there's a reason why I think it's doing well, and people.
I love TikTok so much.
Yeah, people need to be
So
very
dangerous.
very.
Yes.
You need to be genuine on there for it to translate, and that's it's a whole different perspective. But thank you for listening. This is Thoughtful Discussions. Yeah.
Yeah, we out, man. We out. Go out there, do something beautiful. The world's counting on you. Remember, this world is a blank canvas, so each and every one of you grab that paintbrush, and we'll start painting a masterpiece together. Hello. We're out.